I'm Irvin Waller, Professor Emeritus at the University of Ottawa, and the author of Science and Secrets of Ending Violent Crime. I'm consulted internationally on how to save lives, protect women, and avoid misspending on crime issues. My recommendation for the Finance and Economic Development Committee is to ask the city to use the equivalent of 3% of the police budget to have 50% fewer victims of street and gender-based violence. Investing this modest amount on evidence-based that's proven and international best practice, i.e. some city has already done it successfully elsewhere, will achieve these measurable outcomes over the next 4 years. 50% fewer homicide shootings and victims of gender-based violence, and so 50% fewer police interactions with Indigenous, Black, and equity-deserving communities, 50% savings in police and prison costs needed to react to violent crime. The Community Safety and Policing Act requires every municipality to adopt a community safety and well-being plan. This requires change, prevention, not just policing, results, not just the same, including for municipalities to have a multi-sectoral group working on these issues, but also to use data to identify and prioritize risk factors and to set out measurable incomes, and to have police boards with business plans that align with that prevention plan. The Ontario planning framework that goes with that community safety wellbeing plan talks about 4 broad ways of dealing with crime. One is social development, that's better housing, that's more housing, mental health plans, reducing poverty. The second one is prevention, and that's actually what I'm going to focus on. The third one is risk intervention, which is basically where the police refer cases back to the services that can actually tackle the problems. And the last is emergency response, which is where most of the police services budget currently goes in Ottawa. The evidence is very clear that the most effective and cost-effective way to reduce violent crime is prevention, that second category. So what would a prevention budget look like in Ottawa? It has to cover implementing effective prevention programs that are tailored to the city, and outcome management to ensure that the programs actually focus where they're needed. So amongst the effective prevention programs would be development and spending on street workers who outreach to young men who are involved in street gangs and using guns. It would include using these workers in hospital emergency when the victims of shootings or knifings come to have their wounds dealt with. It would include stuff around school, the teenage years in schools, such as SNAP. There are already some SNAP programs in the city of Ottawa. These are basically programs to help young men control emotions and find different ways from violence in resolving those emotions. It would involve changing culture in schools and universities, primarily to reduce intimate partner and sexual violence. A fourth item would be family and parenting support for the mother or the parents of those young men who are either in the street gang way of life or tending towards that. Managing measurable outcomes is particularly important in this city. It seems to be the main ingredient missing from the current strategies. This requires data to measure outcomes, not just homicide data that are readily available, but also data looking at whether young people are coming out of schools with different skills, where their intimate partner violence in the post-secondary period is going on. It would include epidemiology, the most important one being looking at people coming to ICU and looking at the circumstances in which the violence took place. If we're going to see a change in culture from reaction and from policing only into significant prevention culture and real spending effectively, we also have to look at raising awareness across the city, decision makers about prevention knowledge, and we have to look at training. So in simple terms, why am I so confident that this budget will achieve the measurable results? Well, the violence prevention knowledge is extensive, not well known to decision makers in this city, but is extensive. It's available from the World Health Organization, from the British College of Policing, from US government websites. It's also available from national commissions, and my favorite and the most relevant to the city of Ottawa is the Youth Violence Commission in the UK. So why do I believe that measurable outcomes will work? Well, it's what is recommended and agreed by governments in the context of the World Health Organization, the UN Office of Drugs and Crime, and so on. It's also the key elements of the leading best practice, which Ottawa should be looking at closely. That's Glasgow, which achieved a 50% reduction within 3 years and now is being replicated across the UK, and it should be adapted to Ottawa. Managing change is not a simple exercise. It requires raising awareness, training, and data. So there you go. If you could get the city to spend the equivalent of 3% of the police budget, you would have 50% fewer homicides, shootings, and victims of gender-based violence. You would solve some of the problems of police interactions with Indigenous, Black, and equity-deserving groups. And over time, you will save police costs. Thank you for your attention.